A good video has a story element that keeps it engaging for people to watch, whether it's a gear review, a vlog, or a cinematic travel video. If you don't have some sort of story plugged into it, it's likely that people lose interest and click off your video. If people click off your video, giving it a bad audience retention, YouTube marks your video as and you don't get any views, and therefore you're sad. Being able to plug these storytelling methods I'm going to share with you into your project is also just going to make it easier for you to do any script writing or ideation, to follow the certain structure. It's just going to make the whole process easier for you. So before we get to the actual story structures that you can plug into all of your projects, let's go over some of the tips to ensure that you are doing this as best as possible and you're doing it in best practice. When planning, start with the end and work backwards. If you have a definitive ending that the rest of your video can kind of lead towards, it's going to make it much easier to structure the rest of it with it still being cohesive within that one story and your video having a point. So when planning or filming, figure out the ending and work backwards. This could be something like getting to a certain location for a travel vlog, learning a new skill for a tutorial, or finding out whether a piece of gear is good if it's a gear review. Then go back and work out an interesting build-up to get to that point. So planning where you want to go for your travel vlog, maybe why you want to learn this new skill, or a problem that the piece of gear might or might not solve. And then the middle is just going to be everything about how you get to that end result from the start point. And it's important to keep in all of the problems, struggles, or any struggling scenarios that you would entail getting to that end zone. That's what makes it interesting. Don't leave them out. So many people leave those bits out, the struggles, the hardships, the spanner in the works. Very important. This is how we keep it. This is the problem that we solve to get to the end. The next tip is going to be to show, don't tell. It's super easy to kind of just tell the people what's going on rather than showing them. But if you take the harder route of showing them instead of telling them, it makes it so much more immersive and real because they're a part of that thing. Instead of you just telling them about the thing, they're actually seeing it for themselves. A viewer, when they're watching a video, they're only seeing what you're showing them. And if the only thing that you're showing them is you telling them about something, it's not the same as them actually being involved in said thing. So show, don't tell. Stop updating. Updating is not storytelling, nor is it captivating, nor is it capturing the actual thing that you're doing. It's just updating about things. So imagine a scene where you are going to be going on a walk or a hike, and you go, okay guys, so we're deciding that we are going to go on a walk. Then you do the walk and then you go, so we just did this walk. We walked over here and we walked over there. We walked a little bit everywhere. And now we're here. Next, I think we are going to go walk somewhere else. So that's not storytelling. That is telling. Or a better way is you could just start immediately by being on your walk and showing you guys walking somewhere without much context to the viewer, creating some sort of sense of interest or intrigue because what's actually going on. They're walking somewhere, I'm not sure where. Another approach, if you think it is vital that you do discuss or give some backstory onto why you're walking somewhere, maybe show the conversation of you and your other person you're going on a walk with talking about, oh, let's go for a walk here. Should we go to this spot or should we go to that spot? That's showing the real thing. It's not just telling the camera, hey, we're going to go for a walk over here. Look, we went for a walk over here. You get the idea. The updating way of vlogging, in my opinion, is one of the most boring ways to tell a story, if it even is that. But unfortunately, it's also one of the easiest ways to do it, which I feel is why a lot of people fall into it. So maybe you're still going to do it sometimes, but do your best to not update and rather just actually show that process whenever you can. So here's another way that you can do this if you do want to actually have that talking and explaining kind of thing, because I totally get sometimes it makes sense. So the easy kind of wrong way would be, let's take a van life video as an example. So today we are going to be doing van life. We are going to move our stuff into our van, and then we are going to drive to a campsite and go and sleep there for the night. So look, we're putting our stuff in the van, you get the idea. And then it cuts to like some cinematic montage of you driving to a campsite that most of the clips have no relevance to anything, and it's just a bunch of like clips put together with some music in the background. This is one of the most typical ways of creating vloggy style or whatever style content, and this applies to a bunch of the others like gear reviews and cinematic videos as well. But here's another way, another example, so that you can get a better idea of reference. What if instead of doing it like this, we did something like, so have the footage, these clips of you actually doing the thing, like moving your stuff into the van and getting ready to set off on this grand van life adventure. And then you could also have footage of you driving to the campsite, but then maybe add a voiceover over the cinematic footage to explain the thing that you need to be doing instead of just updating and telling the person. So now you can have this cinematic footage. You could have some voiceover going like, I've always wondered what the freedom would feel like of not being tied to one place. As we packed our van with nothing but the essentials, we set off not knowing where we were going to sleep that night. Then you can show yourself finding the place you want to sleep, and even if you are doing a bit of updating, then it makes it much more interesting, right?
I've always wondered what the freedom would feel like of not being tied to one place. As we packed our van with nothing but the essentials, we set off not knowing where we were going to sleep that night.
So you may have noticed this was obviously not my voice for this demonstration, and that's because our list has this new feature where you can generate any voiceovers that you want from multiple different voice presets. The voices end up sounding super realistic, and no one would know that this is an auto-generated voice and not a real voiceover that you've created. So even if it's for a project like a documentary and you need some narration, or you need like some voice to enhance the certain storytelling aspects of something, create it in Artlist. The link is going to be in the top of the description if you guys want to go check it out. They have some cool offers going on, so it's really something worth checking out and exploring and playing around with. Okay, let's get to the actual story style structures that I like to plug into my videos and scripts to make sure that they're following this overall script guideline. So let's start with my favorite, and it's going to be circular storytelling. Basically, this is a method where you initially propose some sort of question in the beginning of your video, and by the end of your video, you've arrived back at almost that same point being the beginning, either with a new perspective or an answer to that question that you originally proposed at the start. The middle of that whole video can kind of be whatever you want, but as long as you arrive back at that starting point, answering the questions or ideas or anything that you proposed in the beginning, it's a really awesome way of making it seem like you know what you're doing, even if sometimes you don't. So this is one of my absolute favorite ways to tell stories, because even if it's something like a vlog, I can kind of think of that ending, which I'll propose in the start, and then I can go about my day doing whatever I want, capturing all the organic scenes and unplanned stuff that you can't really like conceptualize beforehand. And then at the end of the video, I can just conclude by being back in that beginning. As an example, you could be going on this crazy hike. In the beginning of your like vlog or story, you can be like, I've always been so scared of going on hikes like this, whether I can make it or not, and I'm honestly terrified. Whatever. Then you show your whole vlog of you going on this hike, the whole story, whatever happens in that thing, the struggles, the tribulations, whatever. Doesn't really matter. Then at the end, you just arrive back to that initial thing that you proposed. So you go, after my whole hike, I realized that the fear I have is often premeditated and doesn't actually exist. I'm always so capable of doing the things that I'm scared of, whatever. But you just get back to that beginning and answer that question, or offer a new perspective on the original kind of take that you had of the idea. Best way to tell stories, in my opinion. I use this all the time. It of course applies to things like gear reviews or any other style of content for the most part. If it was a gear review, you could do something like, I have been looking for a camera that I can vlog with that still has the best quality, and I haven't found one. I actually don't know if one exists. Then whatever, you go about your day, looking at cameras, talking about cameras, testing cameras. The end, you get back to that beginning and you go, I think I might have found the camera that can solve that problem, because this new camera that I've been testing actually does all of these things. And I think I finally found the camera that has all the quality that I can create these vlogs with. You just get back to that beginning. Amazing. That was long. My next method is going to be starting in the middle. For this, I like to not waste any time giving context and throw the viewer straight into the middle of your story with everything already happening. Giving that forward momentum and immediately being immersed in it gives the viewer of the feeling that they need to be catching up to figure out what's going on. And it's an awesome way to start off your stories. Straight in the action, straight in whatever's happening. Even if later on in the video, you want to go back to beforehand and give a bit of context to that scenario you were in, but starting right in the middle, throwing them straight in is an awesome way to immediately grab the attention of your viewer. You can still give context if it's something really important, but just start it off with a bang, hit the ground running, and let the viewer catch up as to what's actually happening in your story. The third structure that you can plug into any of your projects is going to be the classic payoff at the end. This is the classic way of, it's a build up to get to that end result. This is where thinking of the end first, we discussed earlier, is going to be really, really helpful, because you can think of that ending and then work back how the build up leads you to get there. This works for any style of content for the most part. Even if it's like a tutorial, I'll generally have some sort of payoff at the end. So one of my most successful videos is creating 7 shots or something, and then I'll say at the end of the video, I'm going to show you how these 7 shots work together to create a full video. So that's the big payoff, and then we show the build up of getting to having that complete video, and the viewer can see that big payoff at the end. So this can also be in some sort of vlog format. Again, just think of the ending first and then maybe some sort of conclusion, and work your way back and capture your day organically through whatever you might be doing for a vlog, because you don't want to plan it too much, but you still get to that big end point that you maybe like teased a bit in the beginning or showed how you're going to have to work towards this thing, and then that being the big payoff. Maybe it's the van life example. We have to move into our van. That's the ending payoff, is moving into the van. Then the rest of your video is just showing the process of how you're going to get to that point. What are the tasks? What are the challenges? What are the things you need to do to be able to move into that van by the end of the day? Because, ooh, limited time. You work through that. The payoff is moved into the van. Boom, we're in the van. You can show that as your big payoff for the end of your story. That's pretty much going to be it. I think it's cool to kind of use these techniques for YouTube videos, because YouTube videos and filmmaking do use slightly different storytelling techniques. So having these methods and structures along with the tips that you can plug into your video scripting or ideation or even filming process is going to be really helpful for you. Remember, if you want to try the voiceover generator from our list, it's amazing. Just go even mess around with it. It's going to be linked in the top of the description. Other than that, have fun. Bye.